Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to the listening and viewing audiences of Unboxed on Purpose. We are a podcast created by Favored by the Father Ministries, and I greet you with Jesus' joy. For it is in Him that I live, move, breathe, and have my very being. I am your host, and I am Barbara Arlene Fields Brehon. Our featured guest will share how they stepped outside of their comfort zones to become unboxed. We still share experiences that lead to the fulfillment of purpose. And I pray that each episode will help our audience access in excess their authentic destiny. Sharing with us today is Dr. Lindsay Weisner. I did not double check the
It's okay. You had it right the
right.
first time. It's all right. It's Weisner. Don't worry.
Weisner. How? Welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be on.
This is a great thing because Dr. Weisner is going to discuss breaking barriers of mental health. She is a New York psychologist, the author of Psychology Today blog, The Venn Diagram Life, and a mother of 2 teenage children. God bless your heart.
You're telling me.
Dr. Weisner stepped out of her comfort zone when she was taught as a child to stay in place. And she became an open, honest mental health advocate. She is also a podcaster and author of the book called 10 Steps to Finding Happy, a guide to permanent satisfaction. And I know all of our listening audience wants some of that. Hello again.
Hi
Thanks
there.
for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Let give you a moment to share a few words of greeting and let the audience know how we came across each other.
Sure. Well, hello, audience. We came across each other. I believe it was on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got a lovely email from you telling me all about your podcast, and it immediately sounded like something I'd love to be a part of.
I was so excited that someone of your caliber working with Psychology Today would say yes and be here. And I know that we will help someone to come outside of a box of confinement and seek their happy.
Yeah.
And
I like that. I like that. Yeah.
let's help people to seek their happy.
Yes.
And so to begin some of the conversation, let's roll it all the way back to Lindsay's childhood and think about your passions in life, because I believe that passions in early childhood lead adults to who they have become.
Oh, I believe that 100%. 100%. I've always loved reading and writing, and that's still true today, obviously, with my Psychology Today blog, and I also do a bunch of other freelance writing. And I always really wanted to understand people, because people are sort of the most important thing. And if we can understand the people in our immediate surroundings, it can help make us feel safe, less anxious, less depressed, and just better prepared for what might come next, even if it feels like it's always the impossible and unlikely that comes next, as was often my case while growing up. So
That's interesting. So even as a child, you had a passion for doing what you're doing right now.
oh yeah. Yeah.
So what would you consider, let's say, a 30-second unique identity about yourself?
Well, I am uniquely known in my family for my sense of humor, and also for spilling random facts about psychology that I've learned, whether it's, what percentage of people, what's a vulnerable narcissist, or what percentage of people out there struggle with their identity, or how to improve your marriage. I am the first one to unfortunately plague random strangers who usually become friends with the knowledge that I've gained. And it's, there's no other word for it than a dork. I'm a big dork and proud of it. So,
It's good to have your own identity,
yeah,
and it's good to be proud of who it is that you are.
yeah,
And that helps you to have a happy place.
it
And
does help you. Yeah.
mental health is key, and we want to make that an issue for our podcast from episode 1 through episode however many the Lord will have us to do. And so as we're talking about happiness and all that sort of thing, describe your most joyful moment in life. When you reach
Oh,
back to whatever you want to reach back to, talk to us about your happy, your joyful moment in life.
well, it is not the birth of children, because anyone who tells you that is a lie, I think, because that was miserable. But but I do love laughing with my children, or when they'll send me what I think we're calling pebbles now of little things that they find online on their social media, and then they'll share it with me. And I very much enjoy that. I also think you'll probably notice this soon enough. I enjoy my cats, and they are going to run around in the background. But definitely it's the connections with my children, and then also my husband of wow, 20 years now. Those connections.
Yes, I have seen your cats running
I
around,
know.
and to have that piece of you in that way is great to get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah. What you
So
see is what you get, and you get cats today, apparently.
it works for me. So when we're talking about breaking through boundaries and dealing with mental health and all of that, would you go ahead and start talking to us about a time when you stepped outside of your box, and maybe there's a specific thing or situation or two? Um, Open mic, go for it with whatever way that the Lord just
Sure.
naturally wants you to talk about it.
I definitely I've had a couple occasions with patients where, as a psychologist, you're trained to be sort of a blank slate, and feel what people you know feel what people feel, and then just project something sort of neutral in return, so that they can reach their conclusions on their own. But there have been a couple different cases where I've stepped outside of my boundary for the purpose of a greater connection. I'll give you an example. I had a patient who was struggling with her husband, and had been struggling with him for quite a while. And she, after several years together of watching her, for lack of a better word, suffer with her marriage, uh, she was always suspicious. And I went out on a limb and said, well, have you checked the phone records, the credit card records, anything, which is not a therapist-y thing to say, but it is something that I would want someone to say to me. It is something I would want someone to say to my best friend, my child. And so I did so, and I'm happy to say she's now happily remarried and just had her second child. So I do think sometimes those boundaries are important to break, or um, for myself and for the person, because how awful would I feel if I kept it to myself for the purpose of being a neutral blank slate, and then something came up later that perhaps we could have saved her some pain. uh, that's one of my big memories. And I've also uh, heard from patients after therapies stopped, which isn't typical. Typically, when the therapy ends, your connection with them ends also. But I've had people reach out to me and tell me what they're doing now. And, in part, it's often to thank me for the work we did, but it's also good to hear when they go on to do sometimes better or more needed work with someone else. And I like that my door is always open for people that I've known once, and then might know again. And that applies to both my patients, my professional life, and as well as my personal life. That my door is always open for reconnections.
I like that. As a minister who obviously works with people and you listen and all those things, you're giving a lot of foundation for me to stand firm in what I believe and how I practice the craft, so to speak, of being a minister of the gospel for God's people. And so, as we're talking about our interrelationships with people, and when they reach back, it's just such a joy to us. Just
Yeah.
continue to talk to us about your work. I know you've got great passions because it's always been in you. I'm just going to give you open mic again, and you continue to talk to us about anything you like regarding your work and your passions, maybe what's on the horizon for you. Just go for it.
Sure. I love
Unedited, I'm not timing it.
it's all right. I'll try to do well. I really love the opportunity writing for Psychology Today. As we mentioned earlier, I have a blog called The Venn Diagram Life, and I get to write about whatever I want, really. And it's solid, it's researched, and that's how I get all the dorky stuff to throw at people when I meet them, is from the work that I do. Previously, I've co-authored a book called 10 Steps to Finding Happy, a guide to permanent satisfaction. That was a wonderful experience with a horrible release date of March 18th, 2020. So it was just as the world was shutting down. And I still love it, and it's still a great book. And lastly, I would say, well, this is both a love and a hate, is my Instagram account. Trying to keep up with how to get people's attention in a flashy way is just not me. But I like the idea of bringing science to the everyday person. I like that a lot because science sounds stuffy and boring to me. And I definitely thought that it was for many years. And then about 5 years ago, I got diagnosed with adult ADHD, which I had had my whole life, but they weren't looking to diagnose it in women because it was so unusual when I was a kid. I'm 47 years old, so it was a long time ago. And I suddenly realized that science wasn't so difficult once I had better focus and understood what my challenges were. And I'm really excited that any day I can wake up and write something new or bring something new about science. And sometimes it's science and reality television, or this morning it was science and something called vulnerable narcissism. It's always something that I want to share with people to make that connection, because I really do enjoy my personal connections.
It's interesting to me how what we do with social media, to me, is ministry. When you're connecting with people and
Sure.
helping them to break barriers, you're helping them to cross boundaries. And sometimes those boundaries are self imposed,
Yes.
and they set them for themselves. Would you talk to us a little bit about that part of it?
Yeah, I try to talk both in my writing and in my conversations with people the same way I would with anyone. I don't think therapy should be about sort of an expert and a student, or a teacher and a student, although it's great if we had those teaching moments. And I do know more than the average about what psychology than the average person that's coming in. But I really like stepping outside of that typical comfort zone, and it's not unusual for me to use to use language to catch people's attention, or to and I'm thinking like language that's less than appropriate, but it's usually for the shock value of drawing someone in to something that they might not have thought was interesting before. I like that a lot.
That's interesting, and helping people to cross thresholds. Sometimes I hear words and phrases that I don't use, but I have to remember it's more important to connect with the individual than to hold too much offense to something that someone said, if my goal is to assist them and to
Right.
escort them from their now to their next. Uh,
Right.
we could talk about a whole lot of things in that regard, but just continuing to connect with the audience and people who need a little bit of help breaking through barriers and stepping outside of boxes and comfort zones and that sort of thing. What advice would you give to the younger you?
Oh gosh. Well, don't listen to most of what your parents say.
Oh,
I literally still think, I still believe that it's okay to litter an apple because it it gets rid of itself. It disappears. It doesn't make any, biodegradable is the word I was looking for. Doesn't make any sense. And that it's illegal to drive with the light inside your car on. These are childhood things I was told, and I remember forever. They didn't teach me how to fill my car with gas, but they did teach me these two other things. But really, there's so much, like, don't worry, it'll all come together. And all the awkward parts of you that feel like they don't fit together will one day. It's just going to take time. I think that's the biggest advice I would give.
I want to leave that right there because you've explained it to our audience the way that you did. So let's just fast forward to great grandchildren and generations yet unborn. What
Oof.
can we say to them today that will prevent them from feeling stuck in a box in the first place?
Oh, I I have a very open relationship with my children, and so I hope I'll have a very open relationship with my grandchildren. I also hope I don't have grandchildren for quite some time. But I, to me, if you keep the lines of communication open with children, with grandchildren, of course, with your spouse, it really can help you to get wherever it is that you want to go and wherever you're sort of meant to go next. I definitely would have wanted to hear that more. Also, you're supposed to, also I'll quote Batman, why do we fall down so we can get back up again? I listen, I could mention that I hope that their world is a better world than ours, but I think that we've been saying that for years. And I think that obviously there's a plan greater than ourselves, and no one's telling us why we have so many ups and downs in this world. But I think it is important to keep in mind that the things we do today affect our, children and great grandchildren and grandchildren tomorrow.
Indeed, they do. Indeed, they do. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us about your work, or anything else that's on your mind that you just want to share?
Um, that's an excellent question, and I feel I should have prepared for it. But no, I'm always really happy to be given the opportunity to speak, to speak with someone of your caliber and to learn, more about all the things that I don't know. And I like how you're able to see, the God effect in all the things that I say or do, and how that relates to a higher power, much more than it simply relates to my childhood memories. And so I'm really grateful for this opportunity.
This is wonderful. Tell us a little bit about your contact information. People may be wanting to reach out to you to grab a copy of your book. We'll call it your mandated shelter in place.
Right,
Well,
right.
but there is a happy place because of all of the things that happened around that time. Here I am as a podcaster because I didn't dream of doing this kind of thing, but here I am doing it now.
Sure.
Developed a digital app and all kinds of other things electronically because I wanted to continue my mission for God. And he said, "Oh, there's just another way to do it." So here we are, and I appreciate that. So give our listening on and viewing audience ways that they can connect directly with you.
Sure. You can find me on Instagram at PsychShrinkMom, and I look at all my messages, and as well we should, and I respond as well. And you can also find me at Psychology Today, the Venn Diagram Life. And lastly, you can email me. It's my email is old as dirt, and that's okay too. At ELLEKAY@AOL.com, and I'm happy to answer any questions I have. Tell you more about which stores have my book right now, and go from there.
I think this has been a delightful way to start the new year of Unboxed on Purpose because we share all kinds of things that the average person, you don't have to be somebody special in the sense of being famous or something, but the average person can listen and participate and even join as a guest themselves. And
Yeah.
I just appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to come on board and help us to get the message across that we don't have to stay stuck in boxes.
We
Anything
did.
else you want to add before I give my closing?
No, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you so much. You are unboxed on purpose, and I believe you have encouraged others to step outside of a box on purpose. And so we want to invite all of our guests to join us again for the next episode of Unbox on Purpose with refreshing conversations that shape our today as well as our future. We will post our new episodes on Thursdays on the Favored by the Father YouTube channel, on our Facebook page, on our LinkedIn page, as well as on most podcast platforms. You know, as we evolve, as we grow, as we bloom, as we blossom, we are like butterflies floating out of a box, a dark place in life, allowing the Holy Spirit to advance us to high, lofty levels that are immeasurable in the Lord. We want you to connect with your inner self, fulfill your purpose, bloom wherever you're planted, and remain favored by the Father. Thank you so much for joining us this week and continue to connect with us.
Thank you for having me.
God bless you.